Hello, everybody. I am Mickey. I'm not your mama's minister. And today we're going to talk a little politics, a little spirituality. Let's start. So, let's face it, the American prison system does not send out men and women that are prepared for society. And so, in many cases, we end up with people not only the recidivism rate being so high, but we also end up with people who just feel like they are not part of our society. They just don't feel like they belong anywhere. They feel like this is my life, this is my lifestyle. So, what about those people? So, there's my little doodad for politics. I mean, yes, I wish that the American prison system was better suited to keeping people as human as possible, but that doesn't happen. Let's hope things get better, but right now I'm not seeing too much of a push for us to keep criminals feeling as human as possible. Because let's face it, we want to do less harm to others when we feel like we are more connected, when we feel like we are more human. So today's video is not about how we need to make the prisons better. It is all about, because what do I deal with? I deal with the spiritual nature of things. And so I deal with the spirituality of these people. Throughout the years, when people have asked me, how can you do readings for people who are in criminal lifestyles? And so you sit there and advise them on how to be better at that. Well, answer is the same for everything having to do with my readings, and that is that I take out my own personal thoughts. I leave that completely at the door. If somebody asks me my personal thoughts, or they ask me, well, could it be something like this, then I'll tell them, in my opinion. But when it comes right down to it, I'm doing a reading for somebody, so I am specifically doing the reading. I am telling them what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing, and what I'm reading. And then we go from there. So you might sit there and think, because people will have you believe that these deities and these entities and these saints and these spirits and these helper spirits and these folk saints are all bad boy, bad girl, shame on you for being a criminal. That isn't really the way it is, because just like our world is not some sort of utopian society that we just don't feel like hurting each other, it is also that the divine world and the spirit world is not necessarily a utopian society, but they also recognize that we are all human. And so one of the shows that I both like and dislike is Shameless. It takes a nice little section of humanity and shows you what this lifestyle is. Probably most of us are not ever going to know what that feels like to be in that lifestyle, to think that these things are normal, to think that it is normal to kind of do a scam on social assistance, or to be a meth dealer. Most of us are not going to even understand what that lifestyle is like, and yet we do have fellow brothers and sisters that are out there that are living criminal lifestyles, whether it is things like organized crime, whether it is assassins, whether it is con artists, whether it is sex work, whatever it is out there that is illegal and also outside of the norm of society. And so then we come to the question of, well, how can there possibly be spiritual or divine assistance for these people who are committing crimes, who live these type of criminal lifestyles? And how can there not be? They are still a part of us. They are still a part of our society, and we want to keep them as human as possible. Think about it. If we are all connected by some sort of energetic thread of life, then wouldn't we want every single piece of that thread to be strong and healthy and spiritually connected to each other, so that there is less violence, there is less. Now, and let me add something in here. The exception to this rule is any crime against a child or an animal or somebody that cannot either protect or defend themselves or avenge themselves. And I add the avenge themselves in there, not because I'm condoning any crime or any vengeance or anything like that. Although those of you who know me do know that I have a tendency to be on a little on the vindictive side or vengeful side. I'm not condoning that. I am not encouraging that. What I am saying is that this is part of us being human. And so these are things that we do consider, you know, when you are victimized, when somebody has taken something from you or hurts you in some way. It is often that first thought of, oh, motherfucker, I'm gonna fucking kick her ass, or I'm gonna fucking make it so that he can't get an erection for a year. You know, not saying I've done that, just saying I've thought it. Anyway, so when it comes to crimes against children or animals, so yes, sports hunting, divine and spirit worlds don't like that. You want to hunt for food and shit like that? More power to you. You're hunting for fucking sport, you're a fucking cunt. So having to do with the spiritual and divine world and how they see the criminals of our society. So I think that some of you know, some of you don't know. I totally believe that we have created the deities, and it is just big balls of energy that we have named and given personalities to and created and until they became real. And so when we are talking about deities or saints or folk saints or helper spirits that are assisting or being patrons of those who commit crimes, then what are we looking at? Well, we're looking at a lot of things. For example, Saint George, one of our absolute favorites. He is absolutely fantastic. He's a badass. He is somebody that if you haven't worked with him and you consider yourself either a badass or you'd love to be a badass, and I mean that in a positive way, not a negative way, then St. George is a wonderful patron saint to work with. However, he is also a patron saint of assassins and murderers. So do you see what I'm saying? There are all sorts of entities that even by Judeo-Christian or other organized religions have these patrons that work well for those who are in criminal lifestyles. For example, going back to Shameless, let's look at the Shameless group. They are playing cons on the government, they are playing cons on each other, they are thieves, they are doing all sorts of things that, you know, selling drugs and so forth and so on. And so what happens with them? Are they just, does it make sense that the divine and spirit worlds would just leave them out of the mix? They're a part of us. They are around us all the time. Even though we don't know what it's like to live like that, that is their life. And so are we to believe that their spirit, their soul, their that energy is just supposed to be left out in the cold, is just supposed to be left alone? We may not be able to change the world, that we can make sure that they've got housing and jobs and you know, families and friends and stuff like that, but we sure as hell can make sure that that they know that there are deities and saints and so forth that are watching over them, and that they can petition and that they can work with in order to make their lives as good as possible in the negative, you know, in the kind of negative world that they're living in. So there are patron spirits of the homeless, not that being homeless is a crime, but there are patron saints of thieves. I think that we've talked about Saint Dismas before. There are patron saints of, oh gosh, anything that you can think of. I know that I've done extensive talk about sex workers and their patrons. For the Virgin Mary, wonderful, wonderful patron saint of those who have been in prison, or those who are being released from prison, those who need protection while in prison. So very, very helpful in those cases. So let's say you're sitting there and you're like, oh, Uncle Joe is an assassin, and I know that he's an assassin. I really wish that there was somebody that I could petition to protect him while he's on the job, and give him wisdom so that he's not committing crimes against those who are innocent or those who don't deserve it, etc., etc., so that he doesn't fuck up. And well, you're in luck, St. George, and that doesn't even include the folk saints that are out there. So we have the patron deities, we have the folk saints, or we've got the patron saints, or the official saints, sorry. We've got the folk saints, and then you add on top of that that we have a shit ton of people who have passed on that can be petitioned as folk saints. And so, for example, Al Capone is an amazing, very powerful, very strong helper spirit and folk saint for those members in organized crime. And now, let me just say, as I think I said earlier in the video, I may not have, I'm not condoning nor condemning these types of lifestyles, these choices that people make, whether you have made these choices because you don't know any different, because you don't feel like you are able to do any different or anything like that. What I am saying is I am tackling the spiritual aspect of it, and even people who are in criminal lifestyles have access to that spiritual connection and to that spiritual energy and to that kind of assistance that they can draw on, they can pull on to make their lives better. Because isn't that what we want? We want people to be better. We want them to be better themselves, and we want them to be better in their connection to each of us, because the better they are, the better we are. And so there are a shit ton of Jesus Malverde is Jesus of the Bad Green. So if you're making your money from any type of criminal behavior, there you go. There's one guy. Oh God, there is such a huge list that I can't even list it here. But if you have any questions and you can't think of and you can't find out on your own, or you don't feel like finding out on your own, that's what I'm here for, spiritual advisor to the world. And so go ahead and text me, drop me a line, comment on here. I would love to see the comments. If you have any questions about who you're trying to find, if you need help or guidance in the right direction of how to do some protection for either yourself or a loved one that happens to be in a criminal lifestyle, just remember that they are part of us. They are part of us. I know that you feel like they're not. You're like, goddamn assholes stole my UPS package off the front door. They are damn assholes. But the gods didn't damn them. We're damning them because we're pissed off that they've taken something from us. But let's face it, they're still a part of us. They're still connected to us. So if you have any questions, like I said, drop me a line, leave a comment. So don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment. And many blessings, much love. I will talk to you soon, and have a beautiful day.